Hello? Michelle, can you hear us? Did I just do something?
We can, sir.
Oh,
Okay.
Well,
I thought I'd just cut us off.
Nope, you're good.
it's Joe here. I hope you can hear me.
Hi, Joe. We can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I have Joe and Dale on the line. Do I have any other board members currently?
Glenn Willard's here.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Buster's here.
Thank you.
Good morning, Bob Kruger here.
Thank you, Mr. Kruger.
Where's Bill Gross? Michelle, did you go over those instructions with Bill Gross again?
I ensured that he had received them. We do have a quorum on the line, though.
Good. I have a question for Bob Kruger from Joe.
Yes, sir.
Did you send me a friend request?
No, I did not. It must be some.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of.
Buddies.
Yep, that's what I had. That's what I. Happens to me every now and then.
Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I'll post something to that effect.
Yep.
Glenn, are y'all open?
Yes, sir. We opened the Pooler location May 1st, and actually we're almost about 70% compared to last year, which was I'm excited about that. It just shows me that we have an opportunity to rebound. And it started out with only 8 stores open. We went to 12, and then now there's probably over 30 stores opening and more to open this week. Key West looks like I'll probably get to open it June 1st. They're going to open up the Keys on June 1st.
Good.
So probably bring in a few people a couple days before just to get ready. And so I'm glad. I was a little worried that it was going to be late June before they open up the Keys. Thanks for asking.
Any problem getting your help back?
Right now, everybody's ready to work.
Sure.
They have hung in there, and they're actually doing pretty good with the unemployment program. Which the calculations, I tell you, it's crazy. Some of these folks are making more money than when they're working. But they say they're ready to go back in Key West, and I haven't had any problem in Georgia.
Good.
Is Bill Gross on the line?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Right.
Bill, you got to let us know. We figured you might be out there in La La Land somewhere still.
What? Well, I'm still in La La Land, but I'm on the phone. How about that? You've been reading the financial report. You're in La La Land, right?
Yeah.
La La.
Yeah, Marjorie would agree. Marjorie would agree with that.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, do you want to go ahead and get the meeting started?
Yes.
Thank you. With your permission, welcome. Today is May the 19th. Welcome to the Digital Jekyll Island Board Authority meeting. The time is now 9:34. Due to the current COVID-19 pandemic, special remote procedures will be in place for this meeting. These procedures will attempt to allow for full board and public participation using audio only. Anyone with web access should be able to hear the meeting. My name is Michelle Webb, and I will act as the moderator and introduce this meeting format. For public attendance, if you can hear this meeting, you are listening on audio only on our YouTube channel. Please note there is no video available for this meeting. Meeting documents are available on our website at www.jekyll-island.com, Jekyll Island Authority Board of Directors. Public comments for this meeting can also be submitted on the same website. Comments that have been received before Sunday at midnight were distributed to the board on Monday, yesterday the 18th, posted to the website, and become part of the public record. Public comments received after Sunday on midnight through tonight at midnight will be emailed to the board post-meeting, posted to our website, and also become part of the public record. Board member notes. Voting will be primarily by roll call, but discussion will not be. Please do not use your speakerphone as it may cause feedback. Please remember to state your name every time you speak. This will help both the record and the public identify when you're speaking. Please mute your phones when not speaking. I will now take the roll call attendance for this meeting. Mr. Joseph B. Wilkinson, Jr.
Here.
Thank you. Robert W. Kruger.
I'm here.
Thank you. William H. Gross.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Tripp Tollison.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Joy Birch Meeks. Appears to be absent. Dr. L.C. Buster Evans.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Mark Williams will be absent today. Mr. Glenn Willard.
Here.
Thank you. And Dale Atkins.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum. I will now turn the meeting over to Chairman Joe Wilkinson.
Well, thank you so very much, and thank you to everyone. Greatly appreciate it. I'm sorry we can't be together, but we will one day soon, I'm sure. And again, I cannot say enough about this magnificent staff at the authority and how they have kept things going, and despite every adversity. And they're very special people, and I'm glad to be part of it. We'll start with the, let's see, Mr. Kruger, you don't have a report for the Historic Preservation and Conservation Committee, as I understand.
Mr. Chairman,
And
the
then,
Preservation and Conservation Committee has no report today.
All righty. Thank you, sir. And then we will go to the Finance Committee and Bill Gross. And Bill, should we keep sharp objects away from ourselves?
Probably so there, Mr. Chairman. But, Mr. Chairman,
All
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to add an item E to the published Finance Committee agenda. Consider.
That would be in order. What's the motion?
Okay. Well, it's to publish Finance Committee agenda. Consider approval of a $5,000 grant to the Jekyll Island Tennis Center. So, if so, I'd like to have a motion.
And we need a second.
I'll second that motion.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? I'm sorry. Is there any discussion? Chair hears none. All right. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Do we need a roll call on this?
I'd be happy to perform a roll call.
Let's do that real quick.
Mr. Wilkinson?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Kruger?
Aye.
Mr. Gross?
Aye.
Mr. Tollison?
Aye.
Dr. Evans?
Aye.
Mr. Willard?
Aye.
Dale Atkins?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you.
Very good.
So, Bill, you ready to go?
Yes, sir. With that,
Alrighty.
we'll open the Finance Committee, and we'll start with the April financial statements. These are the summary points or the highlights, which are quite highlightable. The revenues for April were $943,380, which is $1.6 million less than budgeted for the month. Year-to-date revenues reflect an unfavorable $1.3 million variance from budget and an unfavorable $575,000 variance from the prior year-to-date. As you may remember from last month, several of our amenities as well as the convention center were closed in March as we implemented measures to control the spread of the COVID-19. Those locations remain closed for the month of April. In addition to those amenities, mini golf and bikes, tennis, guest information shop, Great Dunes Golf, and Life is Good all closed in early April. The locations that were the hardest hit this month were the convention center, with a budget shortfall of $335,000. The good news here is that most of those groups have rescheduled for late summer or the fall. Parking, with a budget shortfall of $283,000, total traffic counts were down 65% from April of 2019. Golf, with a budget shortfall of $275,000, while the 18-hole course remained open for the month, golf plays were down significantly. In addition, the Great Dunes course was closed and cart rentals at 18-hole course were suspended in early April. Expenses for April were $1,666,481, which is $596,000 or 26% less than the budget for the month. Year-to-date expenses were $2.4 million less than budget and were $30,000 higher than the prior year-to-date expenses. The hiring freeze and the freeze on all new expenditures that was implemented on March the 12th continued throughout the month of April. Additionally, we implemented full or partial furloughs for the majority of our part-time employees as well as many of the full-time employees in an effort to further reduce costs. The largest expense reductions were human resources expense, which was saved $225,000, supplies and materials expense $102,000, repairs and maintenance expense $151,000. Net operating cash loss for April $723,101, which is $1 million worse than budgeted. Net operating of $282,288. Year-to-date net operating cash income is $1 million better than budget and $605,000 worse than prior year-to-date income. The April traffic stats. Total traffic count for April was 39,892 vehicles, which was 75,000 less vehicles than April of 2019. Year-to-date traffic count is 282,218, which is 103,802 less vehicles than year-to-date, or than year-to-date 2019. The hotel reports. Revenues reported by the hotels are $278,000, which is $4.6 million less than April of 2019. Occupancy rate was 15.1%, which is down from 79.5% in April 2019. Revenue per available room was $18.07, which is down from $149.95 in April of 2019. ADR, average daily rate, was $119.40, which was down from $188.70 a year ago. The Jekyll Island Club Resort, Ocean Suites, and the Westin and the Days Inn were all closed for the entire month of April. Remaining locations were significantly impacted by the shelter-in-place orders and the short-term rental restrictions that were in place this month. Calendar year 2020. Revenues reported by the hotels are $8.9 million, which is $4.6 million less than a year-to-date, 2019. Occupancy rate was 52.3%, which is down from 66.4% over a year ago. Revenue per available room was $73.88, which is down from $107 a year ago. ADR was $141.17, which is down from $161.31 year-to-date, a year ago. Those conclude the April financial highlights. Let's see. Any questions on any of those?
Bill,
Okay.
I'm not sure that
Yes, sir.
highlights is a good word.
Yeah.
It's lowlights, maybe.
Low light, okay.
But in your packets, you were also given some forecast information, and that's certainly worthy of your perusal, and looking at those forecasts. And Marjorie's going to talk to you a little bit about that. But before she does that, since you've just given the revenues from the hotels, I just want to bring forward one bit of good news here, and that is if we look at our April revenues, the per day revenues for April were $8,942, which is really, really bad. But the trend is looking much better, because if we look at the first 17 days of May, we're now at $22,682 a day. So we're definitely trending in a good way, and obviously we've been opening up more facilities and still trying to practice, have in place good public safety and health practices. But I just wanted to share that with you, the fact that we're at least trending in the right direction, as Marjorie then talks to you about forecasts.
Okay.
Hi, this is Marjorie. On page 13, you've got the traffic counts compared to last year, broken down by paying traffic, annual pass, and total. And as you'll note on paying guests, the total was down 80% from last year for that time period, and the annual pass traffic was down 48%. So our overall traffic was down 65% in April. On page 14, you've got an updated chart for May through the 10th, and I actually have the updated information through the 17th, but that's not in your packet. For the last 5 days, we've started showing trends on the paying guests that are higher than last year's traffic. So as of right now, the paying guest traffic is down 31%. Annual pass traffic is a little bit better at 44%, but we're still seeing a lag there. And our overall May traffic is at 37%, which is compared to 65% down in April. If you'll look at page 15, there's a graph there showing the JIA amenity and convention center sales all combined. And that shows that the combined sales for the 58 days that we've had locations closed is $2,155,000. And I do have updated numbers on that right now, which through the 17th show that we have, for the 65 days, their revenues are down by $2.44 million. So that's a pretty big hit within, 65 days time there. On page 16, you'll see the updated forecast. And the amounts that are in orange and peach there are actually actual numbers for March and April. And so if you'll look at the estimated budget from variance there, we actually had a cushion starting into March of $2.258 million from where our revenues were better and expenses were lower than budget. So we used $164,000 of that cushion in March and $1 million of that cushion in April. So we still currently have a little over $1 million in cushion that'll be used towards shortfall in May and June. Our revenues were 63% less than budget in April, so we were able to save 26% toward our expenses. We're thinking that May is going to be about the same position with 65% reduction in revenues, but we're hoping with the furloughs and the expense holds and everything we have in place that expenses will be down about 28%. So for the month, we're looking at a variance from budget of like $1.3 million. Now those numbers are pretty conservative, so hopefully we'll come out better than that because we are seeing traffic pick up and everything at this point, but we hope it's better than that.
One of our real issues, board members, is that Summer Waves remains closed because it is classified as a amusement park, and you know that Summer Waves is really a revenue generator for us during the summer months, and so that's a real problem for us. For instance, if Summer Waves had been if in the May budget, Summer Waves was to bring in $348,301 was the budgeted amount for May, but Summer Waves, basically the percentage of budget brought in was 0. So that's a major hit for us. I would like to commend a couple of folks. First of all, Marjorie's been working really hard on all of our numbers for us, and I also would like to commend Kate for working with the hoteliers. We've done a lot of work with the hotels, and they will all be open again by this Thursday, and they're reporting as a result of last week some good numbers. But what I wanted to mention to you was something we have written you before, and that is they all agreed to a ceiling of 75% occupancy in order to reassure the public when they come back that there is extra space on the properties, in the facilities for public distancing. And I think that's just a real tribute to the cooperation of our hotels. We also led with our campground in that ceiling as well, and so I just really am grateful for that effort, and I feel like board members should be aware of that.
Good deal. Anything else on the financial forecast, Marjorie?
I would just like to add that, being a customer service-facing company for the most part, payroll is our hugest expense. And by placing employees on furlough over the last 3 pay periods, we've been able to save $169,000 by doing either partial or full furloughs. And Jenna's been working really hard to make sure all that runs smoothly. So I just want to say thank you to her for that, and to let you know that, that is one of the big things we've been working on is furloughs and holding positions open.
And board members, those furloughs have affected all departments, every level, up through the executive office, and senior staff. And I'm grateful for everyone's participation and understanding, because obviously it's tough whenever we're having to furlough folks. I am really excited that we're beginning to bring some people back now as we're opening up facilities. Obviously, it has to be on a phased basis, so we're being very careful, and Jenna's done a great job with that. So I suppose our best guesses right now are the estimates that Marjorie has here as far as our forecast, but we're certainly hopeful that we can beat this.
Very good. Item C, are we ready to go to item C, the emergency repairs for the convention center boiler?
Sure.
And that's on page
Marjorie?
17 of the packet.
Okay. During routine examination of the Jekyll Island Convention Center facilities, it was determined that the refractory inset and the flue collector that are on the inside of the industrial water heater are leaking and need to be replaced. Without these repairs, the Jekyll Island Convention Center risks catastrophic failure of the water heater and boiler, and the risk of not having any hot water for the kitchen or the bathrooms or anything like that. The staff hereby requests emergency capital expenditure from reserves of up to $32,763 for replacement of these internal parts. And I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have those.
Okay.
How long will it take to effect repairs?
We're looking at, Noel, do you have that number? I think it's a couple of days up to a week, maybe?
It could be up to a week. This is Noel. We've got 3 bids from 3 different companies, and the furthest distance out is a week. And we would be taking advantage of the fact that the convention center is dark right now, and working with the convention center staff to make sure that these changes in these parts and the further inspection that goes into it don't affect any further business.
Hey, Noel, this is Bill. Is there a water softener system for the convention center?
Yes, sir.
Do you know?
There is. During these inspections, we've found that there are some internal issues with the water softener, and that could be a contributing factor. So we're going to look into repairing that while we're at it.
Good deal. I know that the scale that we have in our water from the limestone caverns that the water comes from can have an adverse effect on boilers. So, good job. Is there a motion to accept the emergency repairs of the convention center boiler water heater as recommended by staff?
Make a motion. This is Tripp.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Glenn.
Okay, second, Glenn. Any discussion? Any further discussion? All right. Michelle, you want to call for a vote?
Thank you. Mr. Gross?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Joe Wilkinson?
Aye. Yes.
Mr. Bob Kruger?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp Tollison?
Yes.
Buster Evans?
Yes.
Glenn Willard?
Yes.
This motion passes unanimously.
Very good. Thank you. This time I'd like for Marjorie to present the capital improvement request for the wastewater reserve fund.
Okay, thank you. We have prioritized a list of the 10 most critical and beneficial repairs in the water and wastewater departments for capital improvements. And I'll just kind of run through that list really quick. To rehabilitate and rebuild the south aerator, that's $63,000. To replace the west intermediate pump, $25,000. Purchase new gearbox for final clarifiers, $13,000. Replace pumps at lift stations 5 and 15, that's $30,000. Replace 10% of the residential meters per EPD guidelines, that's another $15,000. Rebuild and rehabilitate the south trickle filter for $45,000. Install variable frequency drives on lift stations 5, 15, 14, and 12. That's $25,000. Purchase a lift crane for the wastewater trucks, $20,000. Install new chlorine and pH analyzers at water towers 3, 4, and 5 for $20,000. And eliminate 5,000 linear feet of asbestos cement water line from Claflin to Porter Lane for another $30,000. The total of those improvements is $286,000, and those funds would come from the wastewater reserve fund, which are already set aside, so it would not come out of our operating costs for this year. And I would like to add that those funds can't be used for anything other than water and wastewater improvements. So I'll be glad to answer any questions or have Noel answer any questions, but if not, the staff hereby requests capital expenditure from the wastewater reserve fund of up to $286,000 for the 10 capital improvement projects that I just went over.
Okay, thank you, Marjorie. Hey, Noel, just curious, if you had to throw a number annually, or when is the last time we've spent a significant amount of money kind of revamping the wastewater? On an annual basis, do we spend X number of dollars typically?
Bill, this is Marjorie. We approved $241,000 out of that fund in, I believe, August. Okay. For some other improvements down there.
Perfect. Well, I mean, it's good.
If you remember, Bill, we increased the opportunity there for that fund to grow this year. We even, one of the recommendations that the board approved was the inclusion of some of the parking fee toward water and sewer improvements. So we're definitely moving in the direction of upgrades to water and sewer.
Well, that's exactly where I was going, James, because we had a discussion, starting at least since I've been on the board 5 years ago, about making sure that we're keeping up with the system, or trying to keep up with the system, and strategically spending, not just spending money, but making repairs and replacement before it became a critical emergency. So, good job. Is there a motion to accept the capital improvement request from Wastewater Reserve Fund as recommended by staff?
This is Buster. I'll make that motion.
Sounded like we had two motions. Would somebody offer a second?
I'll make that a second on that.
We
have a motion and a second.
There you go.
Who was that? It was Bob and somebody.
Buster.
Okay.
I'll make mine a second.
Bob. All right. Any further discussion? Let's call, Michelle, would you like to call for a vote?
Thank you. Mr. Bill Gross, Chair.
Yes.
Joe Wilkinson.
Yes.
Mr. Bob Kruger.
Yes.
Tripp Tollison.
Yes.
Mr. Buster Evans.
Yes.
Mr. Glenn Willard.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Very good. Thank you. We'd like to now go to item E. This is from the amended agenda. Marjorie will present a request to accept a $5,000 grant from the U.S. Tennis Association to the Jekyll Island Tennis Center. Marjorie?
And just as a note, this is Michelle. This document is found on page 104 of the electronic packet on our website, and board members received it by email.
All right. We were notified this week that the Jekyll Island Authority has been selected to receive a Facility Recovery Grant Award from the U.S. Tennis Association in the amount of $5,000. The purpose of this grant is to help defray some of the tennis-related expenses associated with reopening the Jekyll Island Tennis Center in response to COVID-19. The expenses that qualify under this grant include, but are not limited to, tennis equipment and supplies, cleaning services and supplies, court maintenance, marketing and technology, and no-touch items and safety items such as no-touch water fountains or soap dispensers. The funds must be spent within 30 business days of the facility reopening, which would be June 24th. And the staff hereby request approval from the board to accept the USTA Facility Recovery Grant Award in the amount of $5,000. And if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
Thank you, Marjorie. Is there a motion to accept the $5,000 grant from the U.S. Tennis Association to the Jekyll Island Tennis Center as recommended by staff?
So move, Glenn
I'll
Willard.
make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Man, we got a first and a second on base. Any discussion? All right, Michelle, call for the vote.
Thank you. Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kruger?
Yes.
Mr. Tollison?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Willard?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes the Finance Committee's report, including the lowlights for the day.
I wanted to vote hell yes for the money, but I figured that'd be inappropriate. Okay, thank you, Bill. Normally, the floor would be now open for public comment. However, due to the digital nature of this meeting, please take a moment to submit all your public comments to the Jekyll Island Authority website on the Board of Directors page. Okay. The next is the Human Resources Committee, Dr. Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. This is Buster Evans. This time we're going to ask our Human Resources Director, Jenna Johnson, to come forward, turn her phone on or whatever to present a telework policy for the Jekyll Island Authority. Jenna?
Thank you. Yes, in your board packet, you received a new policy, the telework policy, for your consideration. You might recall from our last meeting that we talked a little bit about furloughs and what we were doing in response to the COVID-19 and telework options for a lot more positions became apparent as at least a possible alternative work arrangement. And, historically, the majority of our workforce has had to actually be here on the island. And really, that is the case. The majority of our workforce has to be here to perform their duties. But we do have a small handful of folks that are able to, work remotely, and we want to make sure that we just have some guidelines in place. So this policy does outline employee eligibility, job selection considerations, employee selection considerations, along with expectations and guidelines if an individual was approved for telework arrangements, beyond the, COVID-19 situation. So if there are no questions, then it's the staff recommendation that the board consider the adoption of the telework policy.
Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Human Resources Committee, I make a motion that the board approves this telework policy as presented by staff.
Been moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
And you need discussion? All in favor of the motion, she'll signify by saying aye.
Sir, would you like
We
a
do roll call.
vote?
Yeah, let's do that to be on the safe side.
Thank you. Dr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Wilkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Kruger?
Yes.
Is Ms. Birchmeeks on the line yet?
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
yes.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. And once again, let me just point out, public comments should be submitted online.
Yes, for me too, Glenn.
Thank you.
I'm showing we go next to the marketing committee. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. It'll be the report from the marketing department on page 22.
Okay. So Joy will present the marketing committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. At this time, we would like to have Kate provide a marketing update from our very busy marketing team, and just commend Kate and her team again as they continue to move us through uncharted territories as we reopen Jekyll Island. Kate?
Thank you, Ms. Birchmeeks, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Beginning on 22, we have spoken in our last meeting about how it is critical for travelers as they decide to travel again and return to be a safe, not only be a safe place, but to communicate that that is taken seriously and that is consistent no matter where they are on Jekyll Island. And when you combine that with the desire to, visit a place like this that's natural and uncrowded, you can see why the appeal is there and that we're starting to see people looking to Jekyll Island to return. So the key to it, as Mr. Hooksum referenced, is that unified effort. And that is something that you don't see everywhere, where our hotels, our businesses, our amenities are all on board together. And that is really visually manifested through this signage. So that was designed, produced, provided, delivered all in-house by the JIA team. And we had it ready, so it was there in market at these sites when restrictions began lifting, a couple of weeks back, and now that reopenings are beginning, that is there. So it is visible wherever you are, and it accents the materials and efforts that the hotels are making. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Did
Yes.
you lose me there for a second? I heard a mute beep.
No.
Okay. So moving from the signage, the information, into more inspiration, and also to complete that, what you see all around the island, on 23, you will see some of our new out-of-home billboard signage that was deployed this week. You'll see it on Highway 17, the Causeway, and our entrance gate. And this speaks to, really how social distancing is literally second nature here. The wide open spaces, the beauty, the experiences, families can have here in this environment, and also some optimism in this time. Moving from a large scale to closer to where we're spending more of our time online and on social media, on slide 3, number 24, you'll see the growth of what we were doing to keep Jekyll top of mind. Even when we can't travel, we can still dream about it. And, Jekyll inspires those happy memories. So we spoke last time about the Scoot School, which just completed, that got great national exposure and was a resource for families. And we have continued to add to that with virtual tours, videos, and what's very interesting about this is that the engagement, the video views, since the crisis started about mid-March, we got, for the videos that were on our social channels that you see here, we have 126,000 views, and we didn't pay to promote them at all. They were out in the market, and people responded to them, and they shared them, and they spent the time with Jekyll Island. And every time one of those things is out there on social media, people can comment and ask questions that they want to know in general about Jekyll Island. What's open? What's going on with the beach? I want to come back in June. Hey, I can't wait. So we have been very active in that response. And every time we have a piece of content that people respond to, we are able to speak, directly, literally, to the travelers. So as we have moved into this, phase, This is all, you will get there from the home page if you go to the top, and also jekyll-island.com/escape. We have evolved that virtual escape into a page that's just a one-stop location for people to plan their trip. You'll see it headlined by a video where Jones and we address who we are, what we're doing now, and that we hope that when you're ready to travel, that you'll find your way back to us. And in there, you will also find the information about what you can see and do here, and also, again, that virtual content that will keep you connected. So that concludes my report, and I hope that perhaps I was able to add at least one or two highlights to the mix. Thank you.
Great job, Kate, and again, the team has continued to do a wonderful job. These the signs are professional and inviting, and board members, if you have not had a chance to view the video that Kate referenced with Jones, I would encourage you to do so. It is very inviting, and as everyone is looking for an escape today, I'm hopeful that Jekyll will be at the top of their list. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our report.
Oh, Joy, thank you so very, very much. Kate, thank you. And just a reminder, public comments be submitted online. Let's see, Legislative Committee trip, I don't see a report.
I was just going to add that we've talked to some of the folks in the leadership of the House and Senate, and there's still not a date yet when they're going to go back in session, although the media reported maybe June 11th. Talked to the leadership this morning, and they're going back and forth, but there is not a definite date yet, and it appears that they want to go back in and just tackle the budget, and that's it. But we'll be watching it because we've got some things we're interested in. So as soon as we know something, I'll be happy to make a report in June. Thank you very much.
Oh, Tripp, thank you so much. Yeah, I've heard so many different things, and thank you for that update. Then I have the Committee of the Whole, and we've got a prosecution of ordinances. I need my lawyer, Melissa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Melissa Cruthard. So this is the second reading and consideration of adoption for the prosecution of ordinances. Last month we had the first reading and went through kind of an extensive outline of it. This proposed ordinance mainly will allow the executive director to appoint staff members to write citations for violation of Jekyll Island ordinances. And once that is done, then they will get sworn into the magistrate court in order to prosecute the cases there. It also provides for a copy state policy of serving individuals for property violations. Those are the two main things that it does. It was posted on the website for public comment after the first reading. No public comments were received on this proposed ordinance. So staff recommends to the board that you adopt this ordinance as written.
Okay, thank you. So we need a motion to recommend adoption of ordinance number 2020-1. Prosecution of ordinances as recommended by staff. I need a motion.
So moved. This is Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Second.
Is there a second? Glenn, second.
Second, Glenn.
Okay. Thank you, Glenn. Discussion. Chair hears none, then we will go ahead and have a vote on the motion to recommend adoption of ordinance number 2020-1.
Thank you.
Michelle?
And for the board and public members listening, we're on page 25 of the packet.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilkinson?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Kruger?
Aye.
Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Ms. Birchmakes?
Yes.
Mr. Tollison?
Yes.
Dr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Willard?
Yes.
Mr. Atkins.
Yes.
Chairman, this motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much. I'm showing we go next to the second reading and revised and consideration of adoption 2020-2 proposed revisions to the Jekyll Island Beach lighting ordinance. And
on
would
page
need
29,
Mr.
sir.
29. Thank you so much. And I would need Ben and Melissa again for some information, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This is Melissa Cruthers again. This was before you last month as well for a first reading. Again, we have gone through extensive history. We have met, this is basically replacing the beach lighting ordinance that we currently have. It is revising the current ordinance significantly. We did receive public comments both before the first reading and after the first reading. All of those public comments have been considered and reviewed with DNR. From those public comments, 2 minor revisions were changed, which are redlined on page 43, lines 95 and 102. It does not substantively in any way change the proposed ordinance, but it is agreed to by DNR, those 2 minor changes. Again, this is presented to you for a second reading and consideration of adoption. You have, all the public comments have been submitted to you for your review prior to today. You have 3 possible actions you can take. The staff recommends that you adopt the proposed ordinance as submitted to you today.
Thank you. So I would need a motion to recommend adoption.
I recommend adoption as submitted by the committee.
Oh, or staff.
Staff, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. It's ordinance number 2020-2, and it's the revisions to the Jekyll Island Beach lighting ordinance as recommended by staff. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Glenn Willard.
Okay, Glenn, thank you so much. Is there any discussion? Okay, Michelle, let's go ahead with a roll call vote.
Thank you so much. Mr. Wilkinson?
Aye.
Mr. Kruger?
Aye.
Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Ms. Birch-Meeks?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Tolleson?
Yes.
Dr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Willard?
Yes.
Mr. Atkinson?
Yes.
Thank you. This motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much. Next, I have the Executive Director's report. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 4 items for you today. I'll try and be very brief. The first one is an update on the beach crossovers that we are presently constructing or having constructed for us. I am excited about this particular project. It's one that on Jekyll Island, crossovers at the T streets have been talked about for 100 years, I suppose, just forever. And as a result of the support from the state of Georgia and the funds from FEMA through JIA, we have been able to move this forward. There were some delays earlier, you'll remember, as far as the closeout of the revetment project, trying to make certain that we had the adequate resources to move forward. And then Noel began to move forward with the process of selecting a contractor, and then the COVID-19 situation, epidemic hit, or pandemic. And I think it's amazing that we've made the progress we have. Noel's worked very closely with the contractor. The contractor has been very conscientious about social distancing issues and how to work during these special times, and yet he's continued to make progress. The priorities were to complete crossovers that basically were to replace those that had either deteriorated or actually were missing from earlier days, and those are Bryce, Gould, and Albright, and those are Albright is under construction now, and so we've made really good progress there with Bryce, Gould, and Albright. Then the next phase is Porter, and then also the phases include Tyler, Ellis, Stewart, Austin, Barrow, Bliss, and Nelson. They're phases. They're not necessarily in the order I just listed because it's according to actually the required construction. Each of these is custom designed and built, and so sometimes the materials dictate which actual crossover is built in what order. But we feel real comfortable and real confident that we're going to be able to move forward and complete the projects, and that this will be a huge enhancement to beach access on Jekyll Island. And also very important from a conservation standpoint. So Ben has been involved in this, as I mentioned, Noel earlier has been actually heading up the management of the project. We do have an emergency situation that has occurred at the Corsair Beach Park, which many of you will remember was installed as being one of our ADA compliant crossovers. Unfortunately, Mother Nature has totally taken that crossover over. It is basically buried at this point, and so we're working with Conservation DNR to try and come forward with a good solution for that particular crossover, as well as the others that are either in final design, or either in construction, final design, or permitting. So just good progress being made there, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Noel, would you like to add anything to that?
No, sir.
Okay.
You covered it very well.
All right. I want to mention a couple of other things that are really great accolades, members of the board, to our efforts from some of our staff members. And that would be our fire department. The first one I want to mention is that we have received official rating designation from ISO, which is the National Rating Association or organization, and the ISO has ranked Jekyll Island as a Class 3 for public protection classifications. And of course, this does insurance companies use those ratings in their rate determinations. And I just think that Dennis Gailey, our public safety director, and also with assistance from Noel, because that department falls under Noel, that they've done a great job in shoring up our fire protection efforts so that we retained the rating of 3. And it's very significant to me that if you look at the number of fire departments in the United States that are ranked with a 3, there are only 388 of them, and in the state of Georgia, there are just over a dozen that have a 3. Now, obviously, there are some that have a 1, and certainly we would aspire to be at 1, and we will get there, but we will have to spend some more money because we cannot get there without the purchase of a ladder truck. But this is fantastic that we were able to retain our fire rating of a 3 and not slide in a different direction on that scale. So another item that is exciting is Ben Rushing, who is the manager of our fleet. It is amazing to me when I think back, and Mr. Kruger, you were here before I was, so you, I know, remember all the old gray trucks and some green trucks and some white trucks, and we may have even had a purple truck in there for all I know, because we had a hodgepodge and some trucks with the floorboards falling out. We have come so far, and I commend Noel for his efforts there in being absolutely on top of purchasing vehicles that have been made available through other agencies, and at the same time we have shown you what our vehicle maintenance department can do, in that you will remember what they did in rebuilding a surplus fire engine that we received, the one we received from Glenn County. It looks like new. And Ben Rushing and his folks, the Georgia Office of Fleet Management, just sent out their rankings of 132 agencies in the state. Jekyll Island is one of 5 with a perfect score, and I just think that's tremendous. We are in Tier 1. There are 23 agencies in Tier 1, but then only 5 with a perfect score, and this is Jekyll's 5th quarter in a row of being in Tier 1. So just accolades to Ben and his team. And then finally, Mr. Chairman, members of the board have received an update as far as some calendar changes. These have all been posted to our website. We certainly will continue to respond as appropriately as far as whether meetings have to be distant or whether they can be in person. But I do call to your attention a couple of changes, and that is the Finance Committee meeting has been rescheduled to Tuesday, June 16th, following the board meeting, and we are hoping that will be an in-person board meeting at the Jekyll Island Convention Center on Tuesday the 16th. And also then, Mr. Chairman, we have communicated after you called for July, for there to be a meeting in July the 21st, which would be the 3rd Tuesday, and that's a result of our having missed the March meeting and also having the last 2 meetings remotely. So just if board members will be sure and calendar those items. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have today.
Jones, thank you so very much. And let me just give another reminder: public comments should be submitted online. Okay, the committee meetings are now concluded. We will now immediately move into the board meeting agenda. And so I will open the May 19th, 2020 board meeting of the Jekyll Island Authority. We still have a quorum. And the first action item is is there a motion? I'll need a motion to accept the minutes of the April 21st, 2020 board meeting as presented. I need a motion.
This is Tripp. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Need a second?
This is Bill.
Can I have
a second?
Okay, great. Thank you all. Any discussion? Okay. I need a vote. Michelle, do we want to do roll call again?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Mr. Wilkinson?
Aye.
Mr. Kruger?
Aye.
Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Ms. Birch Meeks?
Yes.
Mr. Tollison?
Yes.
Dr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Willard?
Yes.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. Next, we will go to the emergency repairs of the convention center boiler water heater. And I'm going to suggest, I need a motion. Board members have received a committee recommendation to approve emergency repairs of the convention center boiler water heater. And I need, and if there's any other discussion, let me know. But I think that's very straightforward, but I need a motion.
This is Buster Evans. I make a motion.
Thank you. Second?
This is Bill, second.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I didn't need a second because it's committee thing. Forgive me, but thank you.
Okay.
Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion, we'll do the roll call vote, Michelle.
Thank you. Mr. Wilkinson?
Aye.
Mr. Kruger?
Aye.
Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Ms. Birch Meeks?
Yes.
Mr. Tollison?
Yes.
Dr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Willard?
Yes.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And
Thank you.
Michelle?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chair.
this is Melissa Cruthers. If I may please interrupt and ask that we have a motion to add the acceptance of the $5,000 grant from the U.S. Tennis Association to the agenda for the board session. We have added it to the Finance Committee, but this is actually the board meeting, and so we need another motion to add it to this agenda.
The chair would entertain such a motion at this time. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. It's Joy.
Thank you.
And we can take this vote by objection only.
Oh, okay. So, Michelle?
Was there a second to the motion that Joy put forward to add the item?
Glenn, I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Willard.
So you wanted to, is there any objection to adopting the motion? Chair hears none. The motion is adopted.
Thank you.
We can move
We
to
move
number
next.
3.
Number 3 is the capital improvements. So we would need a motion. Board members have received a committee recommendation to approve capital improvement request from Water/Wastewater Reserve Fund. Is there any further discussion? And it's a committee. I don't need a second on that, I believe, Counselor.
Correct.
Okay, good. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion? I want to do a roll call on this.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding capital improvement request for Water/Wastewater Reserve Fund, Mr. Wilkinson.
Aye.
Mr. Kruger.
Aye.
Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Joy Birch Meeks.
Yes.
Mr. Tollison.
Yes.
Dr. Evans.
Yes.
Mr. Willard.
Yes.
Mr. Atkins.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to the telework policy. I need the motion board members have received a committee recommendation to approve the Jekyll Island Authority telework policy. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Let's do this by roll call again, Michelle.
Thank you. Mr. Wilkinson.
Aye.
Mr. Kruger.
Aye.
Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Ms. Birchmeeks.
Yes.
Mr. Tolson.
Yes.
Dr. Evans.
Yes.
Mr. Willard.
Yes.
Mr. Atkins.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. Then we need to go with the adoption of 2020-1 prosecution of ordinances. Board members have received a committee recommendation to adopt 2020-1 prosecution of ordinances. Any further discussion before a vote? Chair hears none. And again, Michelle, I want this as a roll call. All those in favor? Okay.
Mr. Wilkinson.
Aye.
Mr. Kruger.
Aye.
Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Ms. Birchmeeks.
Yes.
Mr. Tolson.
Yes.
Dr. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Willard.
Yes.
Mr. Atkins.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, sir.
Great, thank you. We have the proposed revisions to the Jekyll Island Beach lighting ordinance. Board members have received a committee recommendation to adopt 2020-2 revisions to the Jekyll Island Beach lighting ordinance. Do I have any other, is there any further discussion before vote? Any discussion? All right. And again, I'm going to ask for a roll call on this, please.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wilkinson.
Aye.
Mr. Kruger.
Aye.
Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Ms. Birchmeeks.
Yes.
Mr. Tolson.
Yes.
Dr. Evans.
Yes.
Mr. Willard.
Yes.
Mr. Atkins.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you so much, Michelle. The once again.
Chairman, I'm sorry, this is Melissa
Yes.
Cruthers. I would ask that you, call for discussion on the adoption of or acceptance of the $5,000 grant to the Jekyll Island Tennis Center from the, USTA as,
Thank you so.
as received by the committee.
Great. Thank you so much, because I don't want to lose that. Any discussion regarding the grant? Chair hears none. So we now need, would the motion be just to accept?
Yeah, so there doesn't need to be a motion. The board members have received a committee recommendation to accept that. So hearing no discussion, Ms. Webb could call for a roll call vote right now.
Yes, thank you. Let's do the roll call vote.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wilkinson.
Aye.
Mr. Kruger.
Aye.
Mr. Gross. Mr. Gross, are you still with us?
Yes. Sorry, I had my mute button. Yes.
Yes, thank you. No problem. Ms. Birchmeeks.
Yes.
Mr. Tolson.
Yes.
Dr. Evans.
Yes.
Mr. Willard.
Yes.
Mr. Atkins.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. Counselor, thank you. Any public comments? Again, please direct them to the Board of Directors website. I am showing on my agenda that we have finished. Does anyone else have anything else? Here, no. So I would need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a motion? Okay, a second. And I tell you what, if there's no objection, I'm going to say that the motion carries, and we are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Everyone, have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.